Welcome to Business Innovators Radio, featuring industry influencers and trendsetters sharing proven strategies to help you build a better life right now.
Hello, listeners. This is your host, Andy Curry. Welcome to the show today. Folks, I'm excited because I have with me Abby Marks Beale, who has been speaking professionally for 25 years. The content she speaks on is productivity. Couldn't we all use a little help with that? And under the umbrella of productivity, she talks on speed reading, time management, email management, and work-life balance. By the way, Abby is an expert in speed reading. She has written The Complete Idiot's Guide to Speed Reading. That's one of the series that you would find in like Barnes & Noble. And yes, she did write that for them. Now, Abby speaks primarily in the U.S. She is based out of Connecticut and has written 2 other books. So, Abby, welcome to the program.
Thanks, Andy. Appreciate the opportunity.
You bet. Well, we're happy to have you here, Abby. Tell us about your speaking business. What is it that you're teaching people? Who are you talking to, and how are you helping them?
So I love to work with people like me, which are busy professionals who either are working in a company or are self-employed or entrepreneurial, who really want to be able to become the best people that they can be. And my tagline for my corporate educator business is, I help people work smarter, faster, and just plain better. And so that means a lot. I mean, so in terms of what does that really mean? It means that somebody can learn a couple of strategies that makes them smarter, a couple of strategies that can make them faster at what they do and more efficient. And then in the end of the day, it's that better feeling that, wow, I feel satisfied at the end of my day. And so my goal whenever I work with people is to help them through these strategies feel more satisfied at the end of every day. And so it's pretty much anybody who needs, it could be a parent too, parents or people who are at home. But mostly when I do the speaking, it's groups like corporate groups and associations that would hire me to work with their business professionals, because typically that's the venue for that. You don't have parent groups looking for people like me, unfortunately.
Okay. Now, let's talk about speed reading for a minute.
Sure.
Actually, for a little bit, quite a bit, because that's one of your main topics, correct?
Yes, it's the thing I love to share with people.
Okay, well, let's talk about that. You and I joked before the interview that I had mentioned Evelyn Wood speed reading course, and you said to me, "Oh, well, you're over 35."
Yeah.
So yes, actually, I'm 53, and actually, I remember seeing those commercials when I was a kid. I always thought that'd be kind of useful to do that, because you see the finger going down the page at 100 mile an hour, and it's like, how can those people read so fast?
Mm-hmm.
But tell us about your speed reading.
Well, I'm very interested that you talk about Evelyn Wood. Evelyn Wood was a pioneer in her time, and I totally respect all the work that she had done. And she really has built the name speed reading for people over 35 who ever saw the commercials on TV and the franchise offices that she used to have around the country. But now in this digital age, there's so much more being done online, which is, I think a better place anyway. Not as many in-person classes. But what Evelyn Wood did was to basically show people that there's a possibility that you could do better. And so the courses that I run are not based on her stuff, but, we could be distant cousins, let's put it that way, in that her concepts are similar to mine. But I like to take somebody who has, let's say, an average reading speed of around 250, which is the average of a business professional, 250 words per minute, and to say, look, you can double that or triple that once you have some tools in your hands. Once you have these tools, then you have the option, when you have something that's pretty easy to read, that you could go faster, or when it's a little bit more technical or things you're unfamiliar with, you can slow down. So it's like building in gears that people typically never knew they had. Most people are in like gear 1 and 2, which are the slow gears, and where I think that when people learn some of the strategies that I teach, they get into higher gears of 3, 4, or 5, which gives them options, and people love to have options. So You're not stuck in reading slowly all the time.
So can you tell us some of the techniques, 1 or 2, that people could understand where you're coming from with that?
Sure. I would say the most important strategy is one that a lot of people were either told not to do or don't know to do, and that is how to effectively use their hands or a card to read with. Now, you might be saying, why would I want to use my hands or a card? Well, basically, we all need to have something that our eyes can follow. If left to our own devices, if our eyes have to keep going left and right, continuously on its own, it either starts to daydream, move away from it, or it doesn't go back efficiently or effectively back to the beginning of the next line. So by putting your hands or a card on a page, you definitely have to sit upright at a desk or table. So this is really more for work or school need. It's not like you take your novel and read this way. Novels you can read on your back with it up in the air. Who cares? But when you want to read for business purposes or learning purposes, you put the page down on like a cleared off surface of a desk. Then when you put your hands on it, so here's a simple one. If you take the index finger of both of your hands and point them outward, and you make a palm tightly with the rest. So basically you're pointing with both of your index fingers. Mm-hmm. And you put the left finger at the beginning of the line and the right index finger at the end of that same line. And then you start reading in between your fingers. And then your fingers lightly pull down the page as your eyes go left to right. So you're basically allowing your fingers to keep track of where you are. You're engaging your body at the same time, and you are going to be able to move down the page faster. Okay. Does that make sense?
It does.
I don't know. You trying to follow me, Andy?
Yeah, I am.
Okay. So that's a simple one. And another one, which is the most popular one, and I'm happy to share it with you, is called the white card method. So if you take like even the back side of a business card, if it's blank, or a 3x5 card, or even a white piece of paper, and you want to put it on a piece of reading material, most people would put it under the line that they're reading. And that's great for kids who are learning how to read and people who are a little bit more underdeveloped. But most business people I meet are at least high school graduates, and a lot of them have already gone through college or masters. And so now we're looking at developed readers. And so by putting the card underneath, what it's doing is it allows the brain to go back over what it read, basically saying, look, I don't trust you, brain. I'm going to go back and read what I just read. So by putting a white card on it, you want to put it above the line that you're reading. So you put it on top, and it covers what you've already read, and it pushes you down the page line by line. So basically, you see what I'm talking about? I hope I'm explaining this well.
You bet.
Yeah, and so what it does is it forces you to move faster. So this is, I know personally, I can't get into really higher gears of reading without using my hands or a card. And it's really simple to do, but people just don't know to do it, and it is a little uncomfortable when you're not used to using your hands to read with.
Okay, so like when you also, if I remember right from the Evelyn Wood's speed reading thing, you sort of just glance at the sentence rather than just go from left to right. Is that correct?
Evelyn Wood is, like I said, we're like distant cousins in the stuff that she teaches. So I like to think that there are certain things to look at. It's not just about a glance. It's about really being able to pick up as much as you can in a glance, but to also to not get into thousands of words per minute, which I think is what Evelyn Wood prided herself on, but to take where you start at like 250 to get you to 500 or 750, because that just is amazing for people. And when you're reading for learning purposes, like for work or academic purposes, you don't really want to go a whole lot faster than that.
How do you gauge how fast you can read? Is there a test online, or do you have something at your website or whatever that you can?
You know what? I think there's quite a few things. My website doesn't have one at the moment, but I would recommend the Wall Street Journal. There's a few, Wall Street Journal, Staples, a few of them. But if you just put speed reading test into your search bar, you'll come up with a few. But the Wall Street Journal one I like the best because it uses nonfiction material as its test. Some of the others use like a story. And for most people who are looking to increase their speed, it's not because they want to read fiction faster. It's typically because they have work or school. So I would go to the Wall Street Journal one.
Okay. I'm going to have to try that. I'm curious. I always thought I was a pretty fast reader, but I may disappoint myself when I find that out. Who knows?
No, I like that you feel that way. See, if you feel good about yourself as a reader, you feel capable as a reader, you will read. If you feel like you're really a slow reader, like I used to, that's why I do this for a living. I used to hate to read and thought I was the slowest reader in the world. And so if you feel good about yourself as a reader, then you're going to read. And that's really the goal, is to get people to read, because there's so many people who write, who are experts, and you can learn from them. And it just makes your life better, period, when you read things.
It does. And, I one of my marketing mentors from years and years ago once said, to be able to buy a book to get a lifetime of experience for $20 is an incredible bargain.
Mm-hmm.
So,
it really is. It really is.
Well, let's talk about your other items that you do talks on. There's time management, email management, and work-life balance. Mm-hmm. What's your most next passionate topic for you?
I think, I think time management it includes, in effect, email management, work-life balance, because it's really all about how we spend our days. And so, like, if I was to work in a company on time management, I do not just look at those 8 hours or 10 hours that they're at the company, but we look at the person as a whole in what are their life goals personally and professionally, and how are you spending your time and at work and at home? Are you working when you're at home? And how does that make you feel? Do you need to be possibly trying to segment things a little bit differently? One of the best questions, Andy, and I love this question, and it rules my life, because people always say to me, Abby, you do so many things. I'm on 2 boards, and I have a couple of businesses that I run, and I got a lot going on, and a family. And so the question I ask myself all the time when I have a moment, I'm stopped, and I'm like, okay, what's next? I ask myself this question, which is, what's the best use of my time right now? And sometimes if I have 10 minutes before I have to leave for an appointment, it might be, okay, well, I'm planning to go on vacation, in 2 months, and I want to go look and see if that resort is still there and if they have availability. That would make me happy, and that's 10 minutes, and it's something I need to do. Sometimes you might be in the evening, it's like 7:30 at night, and you have your your son is in the room watching Jeopardy. Here, I have a teenage son. He watches Jeopardy, and I don't get to spend a lot of time with him. And I'm thinking, well, I really could go into my office right now and check email, but you know what? The best use of my time right now is to sit with him for this half an hour and to do Jeopardy with him, because that's the best use of my time. So it's all about asking that question, figuring what's important to you and what are your values and what do you need to be doing at that time. And I love that question and answering it effectively.
That's a great tip for those of us, in business, and we always feel like we've got to get the next thing done. It's, to find a balance of, family and getting your work done and such. That's difficult.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it's very difficult, but it can be better when it becomes intentional. It's when you're doing things that are most important to you first, and then making sure that everyone else in your life is accommodated versus the other way around. Mm-hmm. And I'll say that women are probably worse at this, meaning that they do for everybody and don't take care of themselves as much as they should.
I would agree.
Yeah. So I think that's a much better way to do things.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, you wrote the book, The Complete Idiot's Guide to Speed Reading. Mm-hmm. How did that come about? Did they contact you? Did you contact them?
In all 3 books that I've written, I did not make a proposal for any of them. And I laugh because people are mad at me about that, because some people put proposals in and they don't get published. Because I'm an expert at what I do, I was approached for doing it. So I had written another book called 10 Days to Faster Reading, like 5-6 years before that. And I was contacted by an agent who saw that I had written it and was looking for someone to write it. And so they had approached me about doing it. And so that's how it came about.
That's neat. And how long did it take you to write it?
That one I had a really quick deadline on. I think it was less than 3 months.
Really?
Yeah, I remember not breathing much for those 3 months. That overtook my life, but yeah.
And that's when your time management tool really kicked in, didn't it?
Oh, yeah. Well, some things just had to go to the wayside. It was the work-life balance got off balance during that time, but for good reason, and then it swung back where it needed to after that.
Well, I'm going to have to go hit Barnes & Noble or whoever it is and go find that book. That's awesome.
I think it's in a Kindle. I think because it's on Amazon, you can get it in Kindle version.
Okay.
I believe if you have a Kindle or ebook version, they have it on their website there.
Definitely. Well, I'm going to do that. Okay.
Thank you. If you have any questions, let me know. I'm more than happy to help.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, let me ask you this. How did you get started in the speaking business?
I think it started when I really wanted to teach people more about speed reading. As the only way to do it, I thought, was to start doing training classes. Mm-hmm. And the training classes then said, well, geez, if I could work with more people than just 10 or 20 at a time, then I'd be able to really make an effect. And so I started looking into doing association work and working with larger groups of business professionals. And so then I joined the National Speakers Association and learned a lot from a lot of those members about how to do the business of speaking. And so it makes me a better trainer as a result. And then, obviously, as a decent speaker, I learned how to do that. So it was just a purpose of trying to help more people in less time.
That's neat.
Yeah.
Well, Abby, how can people learn more about you? And if they want to hear you speak, how do they find out about you?
Well, I think the first thing you might want is I have a podcast called Rev It Up Reading Revolution that I just launched about 2 months ago that has just little segments, this 10-minute segments, so they can learn about me and how to read better from the Rev It Up Reading Revolution podcast that's available on iTunes. But they can also please reach me through either of my websites, which revitupreading.com, REVITUP reading.com, or thecorporateeducator.com, all one word, thecorporateeducator.com. So I appreciate you allowing me to share that.
Sure. Well, I want to clarify, Rev It Up Reader, that's R-E-V-V as in Victor, so Robert Edward Victor. It's sometimes the English languages can trick you into thinking it's a different letter, but Rev It Up Reading.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, well, Abby, thank you so much for joining us. That's been a lot of fun and very educational to hear what you are teaching people. Thank you for that.
And thank you for the opportunity, Andy. I greatly appreciate that.
Thanks for listening to Business Innovators Radio. To hear all episodes featuring leading industry influencers and trendsetters, visit us online at businessinnovatorsradio.com today.